Well, I know I haven't done much content considering I promised you guys that I'd have much better stuff, but, finals is just a pain in the butt. But in the meantime, I have been working on a few things in the meantime. Like this.
Stand up, Vanguard.
So yeah, that is my new intro. It's a work in progress, but screw it. I've got something that's better than nothing. Today we're going to be looking at my list for Raging Form Dragon. Both of these are going to be for Premium exclusively because V Premium is a crapshoot right now. Especially if you want a good Shadow Paladin list, just go Luard. It's been topping a lot. It recently been topping in the BROs. Just go for it. So let's get started. Now there are two versions of this list I'm going to be discussing today in today's video. The first list is with the Legion and without it. Both variants I think are still pretty strong, and you can go and pretty much configure this deck however you see fit. These are just the list that I've been working with, and it just works out for me. Now I'm going to say right now, the GZone is practically the same on both variants. You're running 3 Morphessas, 3 Chainbreakers, 2 Dragibus, 1 Dragstrider, 1 Spectral Blaster, 2 Phantom Blaster Diablos, 2 Plot Makers, 1 Dark Veil, and 1 Gelato. Between all the multiple guard restricts, power gains, and just crazy effects in this deck, I'll be going into more of the combos and stuff later on, but I want to make this clear that the GZone for both of these variants are practically the exact same. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start out with the non-Legion variant because I do find this one a bit more consistent, but it's still like very strong overall. So I'm going to start with the grade 0s and make my way up. Of course you want to be running the V series starter. Very self-explanatory, gives you an extra card, also maybe give you 2 if you're going second. We're running 7 crits on both variants of this deck, and that's simply because we want to crit pressure and without giving up so much of our draw power. Now if you feel like that you can afford to lose out on the draw power considering how much searching you get, by all means, drop the draw PGs and go for the Sentinel crits. It's really up to you at the end of the day to make this the 11 crit variant. It's really up to you at the end of the day. I just prefer draw consistency more so than beat down attacks at that point, even though this is a beatdown deck, so keep that in mind. But really, when it comes to this list, there are grade 1s and 2s really make up Raging Form as a whole. So I'll start off with the grade 1s. We're running 4 copies of the Reynolds. Reynolds is basically the Craving Claw of our deck, where it allows us to search for Revengers and adds it to our hand and then puts the rest back into the deck. It also has a really solid retire effect, which does come up in a couple of situations. Honestly, it's amazing. I don't see why you wouldn't run it. We're also running 4 copies of the Mar. This is basically in case for some odd reason you don't have certain pieces in the deck, you can easily grab him and tutor him out from multiple different skills to add the Raging Form directly from the deck to your hand. And finally, we are running 3 copies of the Dorant. This is going to be comboing, obviously, with a very particular unit that I'll go over right now anyway. Blaster Dark Revenger, we're running 3 copies of it. Really, this is simply due to having a lot of stuff that counterblasts, but not enough ways to countercharge. And so I figured that this would be a great alternative towards, getting around that little issue. Really, you can optimize it however you see fit, but I think 3-3 just worked out best. Then for our other 3-up, we are running the Dark Blessed Angel. When being retired for a Revenger, you can counterblast to search out a grade 1 from the deck, and then at the end of the turn it gets retired, which really that last part doesn't really come off too often considering you're just going to be retiring with fair effects anyway. Very useful card. It's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe in different quantities, but it's not going anywhere. Speaking of cards that are not going anywhere, let's talk about the searchers for our grade 2s. Willy Revenger Mana. An 8k base, sure, but it can search out any one of the grade 1s in our deck for free at the cost of putting it to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn. Regardless of how you do this, this is a solid ride target, but really you want to go for Tartu. Tartu is our 4-of. She is an on place from hand, sure, but she basically makes an 18k column with the Renal, which does come up. This between that and the mana, you can hit and start doing really aggressive early game pressure tactics by forcing opponent to guard both the attacks, or have to deal with the fact that I'm going to be adding Revengers to my hand regardless. It's very good, you know, just for the fact that Reno combos with both of these cards extremely well. We are running also our heals, you know, the Heal Guardians. You really don't want to go without them in this deck. Pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, the meat and potatoes are essentially 8 copies of Raging Form Dragon, 4 of the V-Series Raging Form Dragon, and 4 copies of the Revenger Slay Hex Dragon. Slay Hex allows you to search out for the Raging Form directly from the deck, and it's basically having 8 of him in the deck. It's so good. Like, basically, even if you don't have the Raging Form in hand for some odd reason, you can still go for it. So what you'll do primarily is you go into Raging Form, you do a couple swings with the rears, swing with your Vanguard, retire some stuff, ride the Slay Hex, activate Slay Hex's skill to superior ride the Raging Form from the deck, and then your turn pretty much keeps going from there without any issue. On top of that, it keeps adding itself back to hand, so you're free to just keep doing crazy shenanigans with this card, which is why you can technically opt to not run the Legion in the deck. Like, you're going to get multiple Vanguard swings with this card if your opponent gives you too much Counterblast. You know, it's amazing, honestly. So, I know I discussed it very quickly and without any sort of context, but let's go over the GZone for a moment. Now, we are running, of course, 3 copies of the Chainmaker. Basically, this makes it so that we copy Raging Form's skill. We're also running 3 copies of the Drag Principal Morfessa. Both of these cards have really good guard restrict. Regardless of how you meet these conditions, it's still very devastating in the late game. You really can't go without these cards in the deck. We're running for 2 copies of the Dragabyss Luards. Basically, if we get Counterblast denied, we could just go into this and not have any issues. As well as 2 copies of the Dark Dragon Phantom Blaster Diablo. Between all of the riding you will do and all the force markers you'll be putting on your Vanguard, really there are not a lot of outs to this card, providing you do the initial setup for it. This is why sometimes Blaster Dark comes into play. Basically, if you have enough Counterblast open for it, you could really punish him in the late game with this card, push him to 4, and then just go Unga Boonga with the Phantom Blaster Diablo. It's such an amazing card. I don't see myself taking it out of any of my lists anytime soon. Then for our 1-ups, we are running 1 copy of the Spectral Blaster Diablo. Considering we're not running the Legion, this works out pretty well for us. And even if we were running the Legion, because we have countercharging in this deck somewhat, it's never really an issue for us to pay the double Counterblast for it. And then, of course, we're also running the Drag Strider Luard. In the off chance that we need Grade 1 Sentinel Restrict, it does come up in certain matchups, I know. And then for our G-Guards, we're running, of course, 2 copies of the Plotmaker Dragon. A generically nice card to have, plus 10k on Ritual. And then running 1 copy of the Dark Veil Dragon, which gets beefy in the late game, as well as the Gelido. Basically allows us, in case we have 2 Grade 1 rear guards, we can move them up and draw a card in its place. Very useful overall. So this was the deck list without the Legion. So let's take a look and see what happens when we add the Legions in. So basically, for a good majority of the pieces, they do not change. Some of the numbers of how we go about it, they do change. Like, we're running less copies of the Tartu and running more Dark Blast. Honestly, you could interchange them regardless of how you do it. We're just doing this primarily so that we can have enough copies of the Blaster Dark Revenger Abyss, so that we, in case for some odd reason one ends up in damage, the other one is very unlikely to end up in damage as well. And for our Grade 3s, running 2 Slay Hex and 2 Phantom Blaster Abyss. Again, you can optimize this list however you see fit. I saw Robbie Cole run 3 of the Slay Hex and 2 of the Phantom Blaster Abyss. It's really up to you at the end of the day how you go about it. But I think regardless, it's really strong, especially considering that Chainmaker can combo with this card. It is a very strong push turn. Realistically, especially when you have Generation Break 3 to worry about, your opponent will not be able to realistically guard most of what you're going to throw at them. If you get to this turn, you're definitely winning. or at least getting them into a point where they cannot come back from it. So this on top of the crits, which is why I say depending on your variant, depending on how you run your deck, you can opt to take out the draw PGs to add more crits in the deck. It really just depends. Like, this entire deck, regardless of how you build it, is a toolbox. And I honestly think that this deck is going to get even better when Raging Fall Reverse comes out in the next wave of Clan Collection support. I'm definitely looking forward to it because there are a lot of unique cards that are coming out of it. But these are my preliminary lists for the Raging Forms. Now, let me know what you think about these in the comment section. I'm going to be trying to do more premium content in the future, but I kind of wanted to just get this video out there because, well, I haven't done many uploads in a while, and I should probably get back on track with that. So, till next time, guys, this is DRAGNOA, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.